Deep Rooted podcast. We're Jeff and Rochelle Ferguson, and hey, we're so excited to be joining with you. Particularly excited about the next several weeks of what we're going to be talking about. So
this month, just want to say, this coming up month, April 9th, is our 17th wedding anniversary. So
yeah.
It's really weird to say that because it doesn't seem like 17, but hey, we've been married for 17 years. And over the next month,
yes, we're going to spend 4 weeks talking about marriage. You know, hey, if we're celebrating 17 years, we want to talk about just some things in our marriage, and I'm excited about doing it. I think it's going to be fun.
It's going to be fun, and I can't wait as we talk about this. And my prayer throughout this whole thing is that that people, we would just gain a passion for growing godly marriages, for just cultivating a godly marriage, because marriage is supposed to be exciting. Marriage is supposed to be fun. God created it, and I love seeing marriages who just love each other and have fun.
Yeah, and sometimes you just wonder, there aren't a lot out there, and so why is that? You know, what's going on? It kind of seems like, you know, you read books like Marriage is Under Fire and, you know, and all this kind of stuff. And I just feel that that's not how it's intended to be. And so I'm excited to be sharing about it. And so here's some topics that we're going to be talking about. And then we'll kind of talk a little bit tonight too. But we're going to hit over 4 weeks, just some patterns that we intentionally set up.
Yeah.
Really from the very beginning of our marriage.
Yeah.
And I don't know that we were even intentional about some of those, like, originally. Like, I don't know if we set out and we're like, oh.
With the whiteboard, we didn't do that and say.
That's so against my personality. You might have wanted to do that. I'd have been like,
I may have wanted to do that, but Rochelle would have voted me out.
Really constricted right now. No, I'm just teasing.
We're going to talk about this right there.
We did set up some patterns.
Yes. And
I think some of them were on accident, but they've turned out to be really great patterns. There may be even some patterns we're going to share that we've stopped doing. You know, so that's going to be next week. I'm excited about that. You want to hear about that. Then an interesting week will be managing outside influences.
Oh, this is a big one. This is a big one for us. This is a big one when I talk to marriages. I would say for
every marriage.
For every marriage, when I talk to people in their marriages, managing outside influences is maybe among the top things that I hear people talk about, most frustrated with. And those influences, we'll get into it. They can vary, but
they can be people.
Yeah.
They can be like things like work, which is necessary. Work is not bad, but it can be, it's an outside influence on your relationship, relatives, things like that. So we're going to get into that. That'll be a fun one.
It's going to be good.
And then we're going to talk about seasons in your marriage.
Recognizing the seasons of your marriage. And we are big on seasons.
I don't know. Every
general.
Season for us has been.
It's been spring. It's blooming.
You know, no, every relationship goes through seasons. And I think it's important to know about that. So we're going to hit that. Maybe and tell some fun stories. I don't know. We'll see.
I'm afraid when you say fun stories, you mean about how I've grown in our marriage.
I'll tell some of myself.
Hopefully I have grown. Anyway.
I tell on some stuff. And then we're also going to talk about living out our faith as a married couple. How to put Jesus at the center of your marriage, which really every one of the weeks is going to talk about that, but really intentionally. How does it look? What is practical? A lot of people ask us, so do you do devotions together every day? How much time do you spend praying together each day?
In about 3.5 hours.
Yeah, you know, we wake up about 3 a.m. And then we pray for 3 hours until 6, and our children wake up fully dressed with great breath and ready to go to school.
That's our marriage.
Okay, so you can get that. I was not. I was being facetious. So. Find out. Stay tuned. You'll find out about that. But to start out our marriage series, our month of marriage.
Month of marriage. Here we go.
We wanted to kind of share a little bit of our story and passion. And I think it really connects to. So there's a movement. If you're, I'm assuming because you're listening to a Christian podcast, you might be familiar with other Christian podcasts. Yeah. Or maybe you just love us.
Maybe
and
this
listen,
is the only, if this is
you
the
know
only
what?
one, there's
Keep
nothing
going.
else
It's
there.
okay. You're doing good. But
there's no other influences. Right,
let's say that you're listening to some others, or you're reading up or checking out what's on various streaming services and things like that. You can see that there is an attack against what people have called purity culture. I think we did a podcast about this it's probably been over a year. An attack on purity culture. Like, purity culture has ruined my whole life, and
purity culture has shamed me, has,
made me hate
my
marriage,
and,
made me, not like God, okay? Like, all these kind of things. And if you don't know what I'm talking about, maybe you could Google it, or maybe just save yourself some time and don't.
Yeah.
Just trust our synopsis of it or whatever. But we grew up in that culture. I mean, wouldn't you say?
Oh, I would say, I don't know what you say, came of age, or we were teenagers in the culture where there were books and there were conferences on living a life of purity. And so when, I don't know, within the last year or so, we began to hear of a purity culture, in air quotes, about how that has been devastating to people. That shocked me because personally, we grew up in that time period, went to youth group in that time period, and I felt like that I was encouraged in that culture, that environment. And so what that did was that I think empowered me as a student in junior high and high school to actually want to live in purity and to pursue purity. It wasn't a thing I had to do if I want to be a good Christian. It was a thing that I wanted to do because I was living God's design, because I was waiting for the person that God was going to pick.
Yes.
And so that, I don't know. So that's why I think I benefited from what people are calling.
So I'm a little bit passionate about the fact that we're like the pendulum, just because some people maybe shamed others. I don't know. I mean, I can't vouch for every youth leader in the country. I mean, I am sure that has happened. I mean,
people use the Bible as a weapon.
Yeah,
people
people still do that. I mean, people use the Bible as a weapon against us. We're like, okay, I mean, no weapon formed against me shall prosper.
We're off to, this is going to be fun.
Okay. So anyways, I feel like I'm losing my train of thought. I'm mad because I feel like that's a ploy of the enemy, whereas there might be some real people who have, I mean, wrong may have been done to some people. And I'm not saying that. The goal of the enemy is to take down the global church, to take down the gospel. So we can't forget that. And he'll use whatever means to do so.
Yep.
And when we're talking about purity, I mean, I think, what in the world? We're not reducing it to just sexual purity. We're talking about purity of like serving Jesus.
Absolutely.
And so I'm sorry that some people have made it sound like certain things. That's not true. It's about having a heart of like, I want to please the Lord. I want to serve him. I want to obey him.
Yeah.
And even when maybe there were seasons in my life where I didn't want to obey him, I feel like what I'm trying to say is that God wants a heart of obedience. Like, he was still after my heart.
Absolutely.
It's so much more than what, I don't know.
I think it's overall, this is kind of the anthem that we talk about a lot, is living a life of holiness, living in a life of righteousness. Hebrews says, without holiness, no one will see the Lord. And so I wanted purity in my entire life.
Yes.
And I thought about this. I literally did. As a, young adult, teenager, I thought about what I wanted my life to look like post-marriage. During marriage, I didn't want to do anything that I would have to confess to my now wife about. I didn't want to have to do anything that I would have to divulge to my children and say, well, and I know there are people who've gone through that. But to me, I was like, you know what? I want to do, I'm not perfect, but God, can you help me? And so that's where I was at.
And I want us to be people that say, okay, that's the kind of environment I want to create in my home. I want to teach that to my children. If we don't see that the world is trying to infiltrate our children, I mean, we're not aware. No, and so the church better be, read up. And what I mean by read up is on the scripture.
Yes.
What does God say about purity, and he has a lot to say about it. So that was kind of our background, and in coming together, we both had lived a life of purity. I never dated anybody until Jeff, and so it was really cool, just how God brought us together. And I feel that when you ask God to do things, you can trust him to do it. Now, does that mean he'll always do it in your timing or in the way that you want it? No. I just don't want anybody to hear that like, well, I've been waiting for 10 years and God hasn't brought me my Boaz, or whatever. If the goal if the goal is to receive something, that we're not on the right. Sorry, I don't know where that came. Sorry. We our goal is to honor Christ, is to become more like him, but Absolutely. In that we have desires. There's things that we desire. I mean, I always wanted to be a mom. I always wanted to be a wife, things like that. And so we lay that down. We can trust him to do it his way. And that is a part of surrender.
And I think it goes without saying that at every season of your life, there's going to be something that you're waiting from God on.
If not, I think, well, maybe you should ask him for more.
I can look at every season of my life, even right now, and say, I'm still waiting. There's an unanswered prayer. It's not.
Yes.
And so what we're not saying is God's will is easy. And so just you must not be doing something right.
Sometimes following God can be really hard.
Absolutely.
Our kids listened to a song like that. We were listening last night. Sometimes following God can be really hard. I mean,
and what we don't want to do is offer empty platitudes that would say, well,
because it's like easy, like maybe there's somebody watching that's like, man, I've been waiting. I mean, I was teasing about the Boaz thing, but really, like I've been really faithful. I've been waiting, and I'm not seeing any movement. And I don't want you to hear us say like, oh, well, if you were really sold out, you'd see it, or
absolutely.
That's just not true.
That's not what we're saying. Yeah.
I mean,
exactly.
And I remember as an 18-year-old never having been on a date and things like that. I'm like, okay, God, I'm really trying to serve you. And it seems like the Sahara Desert here, like I don't even know what's going on. I met this guy, Jeff. I mean, we had met, and literally the first time we met, his family came over to our house, my family's house, for the holidays. See, our families had moved from...
this is good right here. This is interesting.
From different cities. His family from Michigan, my family from Ohio, and we moved to the same city, Indianapolis, at the same time. Went to the same exact year, same church, all this kind of stuff. And so our families got connected, and his family wasn't going back to Michigan that year for Thanksgiving. We just moved. Yep. And so my mom and dad were like, hey, come on over. We'll have fun. And we had a blast.
It was fun.
We had so much fun. We played games and watched football and did all the things that we do. And I remember that night Jeff left the house. He did a great Zig Ziglar impersonation. He does voices, just so you know. That may have to be a whole other podcast. So he, I got lost by the Zig Ziglar, but that night he left and they went home, his family, and I looked at my mom and said, I'm going to marry Jeff Ferguson. I knew. I mean, like, it was weird. I never said that about anybody. I never said that again. Good, right? Okay. But things did not go that way, like, immediately.
No, it was a long, arduous journey to get there.
I mean, I was 18 at that time. I think you would have been, I don't know, like 19 or 20. And, you went off to Minnesota. I was at Butler and in Indianapolis, and then I went off to Colorado for a while. I mean, we were in different places. I was like, I'm going after the Lord. And then you would mysteriously email me at different points. And
guys, this is where I talk about my weaknesses.
I get these emails like, hey, how are you doing? And I'd respond, I'm doing good. What's going on with you? Crickets, forever.
Wow. I'm sorry. I just want to tell it before everybody. I'm sorry. Wow.
So anyways, but I was in my final year of college, and I was working at a Christian radio station, and he moved back to Indianapolis to take a youth pastor position. So we started hanging out. I remember we went bowling, and we went boating on my brother's boat and some of those kind of things. And we were just kind of hanging out. And I don't know if you want to tell the story about, really when you knew, or...
So I was just like, you know what? I've been praying for God's plan. God's plan is like right there. There's this girl. This was the funny part because I was serving at a church as a youth pastor, and we were doing some sort of church function. I needed to go out to the parking lot to move my car, and I went out to move my car. The red Chevy Cavalier. That's what drew her to me. She married me for my money, for my vehicles. And here we go.
The Cavalier that didn't have power locks. you had to
literally roll up the windows.
Anyways, like the young people watching, you're like, what is? Anyways, go ahead.
And I turned on the Christian radio station was on, and Rochelle there was a commercial, and she was on the commercial pretending like she was singing. And
I was working at the radio station. I was doing an internship, and then I was hired there. So yeah. And
we talk about this, and Rochelle, to her own admission, she says,
I'm not the most gifted singer.
I don't feel comfortable saying that. And it was hilarious. It was hilarious. And I'm like, wow, I need to call Rochelle. So I really feel like that was the Lord. I know I need to call Rochelle. So I call her cell phone, and the message I get is, I can't come to the phone right now. I'm on a missions trip, I think to Italy.
No, I was in Amsterdam. Anyways,
I couldn't keep track of your missions trips. To Amsterdam. And I left a message, but I'm thinking.
I don't really recall, but I was busy doing the Lord's work. Go ahead.
Oh, okay. I just heard that. That's the first time I'm hearing this. Anyway, I thought, wow, it's not going to happen. That's what I thought. So,
I know, it was a couple weeks later. Yeah.
You did come back after you're done with the Lord's work.
Yeah, no, I was still doing Anyways, we can chat about that. No, so yeah, called him back, and then things moved on from there.
So what happened was, we started dating, right?
I don't know. I mean, what?
Go for it.
No, we went. Yeah, you asked me. Yeah, we went boating first.
Okay.
Yeah, I said, hey, let's go boating, and we went boating, and I was actually the only girl on the boat. There was several, just my brother and some of his friends and you and stuff. And I think
me and stuff.
And I think you're like, all right, let's move this on. So you're like, hey, you want to go out on a date tomorrow night? And I was like, yeah, sure.
Yeah, because there's besides.
Just move on.
Anyway.
And so anyways,
yes.
And so we went to Starbucks, and that was the beginning of our coffee. And really from there, 3 months later, we were engaged. And 4 months later, we were married.
Yes.
And moved, because we moved to take a new youth pastor position. And so, and really that started our journey. But God was working that story out well before us.
The whole time.
And that's what I would say. I see God's hand over the whole story. And I think when you surrender every part of your life to him, including, your dating, who am I to marry? You're not going to see immediate results. I didn't feel like I saw. I mean, I remember feeling like this is not working out. What is going on? But then at the right time, in the right moment, you're going to see God move. And all the while, he was doing work in me. He was doing work in you. And he brought us together. And part of marriage is to come together, is to make you more like him.
Yeah.
There's a whole lot of happiness. There's a whole lot of fun. But there's a whole lot of making you holy.
Yeah.
Like, I can be a really great Christian when I don't have to deal with anybody anytime.
Yeah.
But when I have to, we have to make decisions together and come to the same conclusions and things like that. I mean, it makes you more holy.
And so I think what's just powerful about the whole thing is that our goal right from the beginning was just absolutely, okay, God, we want to honor you, and we want to be pure before you. So we were pure in our relationship.
Yeah, I mean, even from the very beginning, I remember it's kind of maybe a little bit funny now, but we were, gone on a couple of dates or whatever. I think we went to a baseball game.
Yep.
And that night you said, hey, can I give you a kiss? And I was like...
So we're going to talk about this right now. Oh, my goodness.
I was like, yeah, I don't know. Where's this relationship at?
She said.
I did. I said...
What's your intention?
What's your intention? Because I hadn't kissed anybody, and I thought, I'm not going to waste it on you if you're going to be gone here in a week or whatever.
You're not going to return my emails.
Well, you started returning emails at that point. And I mean, I remember he said, well, I want to marry you.
I did.
And I was like, and then it sort of freaked me out a little bit. I was like, oh my goodness, we've only been on like 5 dates. Yeah. But I like knew. I mean.
Yeah, that was a. She said, what's your intention? I said, up. So.
Yeah. And so, but what I guess the reason even telling that is through the whole thing, our dating, our what I would call it sort of like courtship, I don't know, and then our engagement, we wanted to honor Christ through all of that. So we even set up a whole lot of boundaries and things like that. We just wanted to honor the Lord when we were single, when we were dating, when we were engaged, and when we were married. It's not like, oh, all of a sudden you have to worry about it after you're married. You have to honor God all the time.
Absolutely, yes.
And that's what a heart of purity is about. Not, okay, I just gotta, I don't know, be pure until you get married, then I don't have to. Like, no, right. It's about a heart of purity. Like, I want to honor the Lord. And so maybe that just is a little bit of our story, maybe a little bit of preview of what's to come. And the reason we're doing this is we want to help marriages.
Yes.
I want to help even inspire people, like, as raising your kids, like, even just like kids can go through being a teenager and a young adult and live in purity.
Absolutely.
I'm expecting that of our girls.
Yep.
I know you hear a whole lot of stories of where it's not, but it can be done.
It can, yes.
And it can be done through praying parents. I think our parents prayed for us. Our parents told us stuff, though. They were instructive. I mean, when I was 13, I was given a purity ring, and it was, this is what I have for you. This is what I want for you. This is what I desire. This is what I pray for. I mean, of course, my parents knew I made my own decisions. I mean, you can't control people, but you can set out, this is the course I want you to walk on. And I think that's really important.
I feel like the picture was laid out before us. This is
you have a great future.
Yeah.
And with God, I mean, can you imagine all the things that the Lord can do in your life? And when you just say as a young person, I mean, I want to follow you. I mean, the Psalms talk a whole lot about how can a young man or a young woman remain pure by following God's word, by living a pure life. Yeah.
And I just want to tell everybody watching, listening, God has a great future in store for you. When you give your marriage relationship or your marriage relationship that you want, continue to give that to him. I don't want to imply that you're not, but to continue to give that to him. And he does. He has a great future in store. And so I think that's what I want to offer to anybody listening or watching is that God has great plans. He is writing a story. And you may not see the end, you may not see what you would think even the beginning, but he's writing a story through you. And so stay faithful.
And I sometimes I feel a little bit, I'll just be vulnerable on podcast with whoever, I don't know how many people watch, couple, that sometimes, I even get leery of like sharing all of our story because maybe sometimes people could feel like, well, that wasn't mine, so I feel really defeated now. Yeah. Like, oh, I can never. No, I mean, first of all, read the Bible. Yep. See that God is into all kinds of restoration and things like that. But I don't think we should ever be ashamed of saying how God moved in our lives.
Never. It's a testimony.
But I just want to say that because sometimes I'm like, oh, what about, but if we're able to share, okay, God delivered me from drugs and like, what if we say, well, God helped me to walk through seasons of life where, choosing obedience was hard, but he honored it. So I think everything's worth sharing about when it's honoring God. So I just want to say that.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So we're excited about the next 4 weeks, right?
Yes.
4 weeks.
Yes.
The next month. Happy anniversary.
It's early.
Yes. Okay. By the way. But we can't wait to talk about this with you. Hey, don't forget to rate, subscribe to the podcast, YouTube and Apple podcast. Share it. Hey, we're excited. Tell a friend. We're excited for the next month. Thank you for watching the Deep Rooted Podcast. We will see you next time.